US Congress is deadlocked as Republicans remain bitterly divided over Kevin McCarthy's bid for Speaker. Joining us live now is Dr. Charles Miller, political scientist with ANU. Dr. Charles Miller, thank you for your time. The 11th round of voting is due any moment. What's your prediction for this round?
For this round, I don't think it's really going to be any different to any of the previous 10 rounds. I mean, it really does not seem as though Mr McCarthy is actually gaining support. He's losing it. So I can't see it being any different, to be honest.
He's not giving up, though. What do you think it'll take for him to go?
What do you think it'll take from him? You mean for him to give up his desire to be Speaker? Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I think there's eventually going to become a point at which he realises he really can't do it. He is an incredibly ambitious man, but once he realises that his chances of success are dwindling away to zero, I think eventually he's going to have to give up and hand it over to someone else. I don't know how many rounds that's going to take. I think there's really him that you would have to ask about that. But I mean, it can't be much longer now, I don't think.
Is there anything he can do? What further concessions can he make?
Look, I think if there were concessions that he could have made, which would have got the sort of rebel Republicans to vote for him, then I think he would have already made them. Like I say, he's an incredibly ambitious man. He's willing to do most things in order to get ahead and get the speakership that he wants. He's already offered them a number of quite incredible concessions, including the idea that only 5 members would be able to get rid of a speaker in future. So I think if there were any concessions he could have made that would have got them on board, then he would have made them already.
How likely is it that we're going to be seeing this dragged out for weeks, possibly months?
Well, I mean, the last time it happened, I think it was 20 days. And this is a very, very long time ago. 20 days was how long it took. I think it depends on 2 things, really. How long until Mr McCarthy realises that he's not going to be able to win, and how long it will take then for the Republicans to find somebody that they can all unite behind and therefore kind of push this person over the line. I can't see it lasting months, maybe not even weeks, but I mean, it's a very, very difficult process to predict.
Yeah, it shows a deep divide in the Republican Party. What does it tell us about the next 2 years in the lead up to the 2024 election?
Well, I mean, I think it tells us that the Republican Party is divided between individuals like Mr McCarthy, who will try and talk the Trumpist populist talk, while in reality being quite conventional corporate Republicans, versus people like Boebert, for example, or Gatez, who are, or at least appear to be, true believers in the whole kind of Trumpist creed. And I think, I mean, this particular impasse, if you like, will probably not be remembered. I mean, assuming that it is resolved relatively quickly, it probably won't be remembered by most American voters come 2024. But if the Republicans keep on behaving like this, then I think it will hurt them with certain segments of the electorate who might otherwise have been sympathetic towards them, because they do appear divided, chaotic, and unable to really do even the most basic things when they are in power. So for them, I mean, it's really imperative to unite. But if things continue in this vein, we could be in for a very bumpy ride, especially when we're talking about things that matter for the rest of the world, like the raising of the debt ceiling. If they can't agree on having a speaker, it'd be very difficult to see them agreeing on raising the debt ceiling. And if they don't do that, then the consequences for the rest of the world, the global economy, including Australia, would be pretty severe. So I think we need to keep a close eye on this situation.
What does this divide say about Donald Trump's influence?
Well, it's very interesting because Donald Trump endorsed McCarthy. And so, I mean, if Donald Trump has the amount of influence over the Republican Party that he's often claimed to, that should have been it, and McCarthy should have been in. But the fact that many of the sort of, Trumpist populists did not then fall in line and support McCarthy does, I think, tell us that there are limits to his power over the Republican Party. And basically, only as long as the sort of Trumpist base see him as being, first of all, someone who can win, and secondly, someone who can articulate all of their grievances more effectively than anybody else. Only as long as these two conditions hold is he going to have this really strong hold on the Republican Party. And the fact that he can't get McCarthy over the line shows that that influence is now unquestionably waning.
Just finally, Joe Biden will meet with his cabinet ahead of his border visit. What can we expect?
Well, I think it's going to be a meeting that will focus primarily on domestic affairs. Obviously, the Democrats no longer control the House. Not clear, by the way, who actually controls the House at this point, but the Democrats certainly don't. So it'll be difficult for them to pass much more domestic legislation. So what Joe Biden will want to focus on is getting his cabinet members who are focused on domestic affairs to implement some of the policies that he's already pushed through, so that he can have at least some domestic achievements to point to when he comes up for re-election in 2024. So they're looking at things like the price of insulin drugs, for example. These kind of bread and butter things that they can say, the American people really care about this, and we've got it done, while the Republicans are off playing their own kind of internal political games. So I think that's really what Biden is going to be looking at in the next cabinet meeting.
Dr. Charles Miller, thanks so much for your time.